Good afternoon. This is Catlin from Family Partners of Morris in Sussex. Today I will be hosting the Lunch and Learn. We have Nina and Jim from DASI who will be offering a presentation on what their services and how they.
Hi, everybody. As Caitlin said, I'm Jim, and this is Nina. We're on the prevention team, prevention education team at DASI. And so DASI stands for Domestic Abuse and Sexual Assault Intervention Services.
So our mission statement, just a little bit more about what we do and why we do it. Our mission is to provide comprehensive services to individuals impacted by domestic violence, sexual violence, stalking, and human trafficking. We hold ourselves accountable in our work to dismantle the unique barriers faced by survivors, to confront systemic injustice, and to drive social change. We engage in transformative practices and aspire to create a strong, empathetic, healthy, and supportive community free of power-based violence. And we'll explain exactly what power-based violence is a little bit later. We strive to empower survivors to create physical, emotional, and psychological safety, and to recognize the fundamental value and dignity of all.
So some of our services, we offer a 24-hour helpline. We'll be sharing that number in a bit. We offer emergency safe house and transitional housing apartments. We offer safety planning for individuals who are in an unhealthy, potentially dangerous situation to help those folks plan on how to leave that situation if they choose. We offer individual and group counseling, support groups. The SIDE program is a program for men who have or are using coercive and controlling behaviors, and it's an abuse event intervention program. We offer advocacy, court preparation, medical, legal accompaniment, domestic violence response team. That's for folks who they call DASI. We'll send out a team to work with those folks and their families who are engaged in a domestic violence situation, and also a sexual assault response team, which is for individuals who have experienced sexual assault. And again, this is a team member, a volunteer, or staff member who will come to the hospital, police station, whatever the situation is, and offer our services or referral to other county local services. We do offer prevention and education. That's Nina and myself. And we offer food and clothing for our clients, and also volunteer opportunities. And all our DASI services are free and confidential.
So our DASI helpline is on the screen now. Feel free to take a moment and write it down. If you or someone you know could use this phone number now or might you need it in the future, it's always a good phone number to have. Our helpline serves all individuals residing in Sussex County. We also have a deaf and hearing impaired text line for someone who can't or doesn't feel comfortable making a phone call. All of our calls are anonymous, and anything can be discussed on these phone calls, whether it's just, sort of trying to figure out where to start. If you are someone who identifies as dealing with a situation of domestic violence, sexual violence, stalking, or human trafficking, and some things that we can discuss in addition to just getting you some general information are, like Jim said, our safety planning options, getting someone set up with a temporary emergency safe house stay. We can offer support, just general information, like I said, explaining some of the rights and referrals available to victims. That is one way to activate our sexual assault and domestic violence response teams, which Jim mentioned, but we can go into a little bit more later. And just to help understand legal or situational options. A lot of times when someone finds themselves in these situations, they don't even know what their next steps are. They may be ready to take a next step, but they're a little lost as to where to begin. And that is exactly what we are here to help with.
The sexual and domestic violence are forms of what we call power-based violence. And power-based violence is rooted in the assertion of power, control, and intimidation with the intent to harm another person.
So just some terms to be defined so we're all understanding what we're talking about. And I just want to offer a brief trigger warning to anyone as well. If anything we say makes you upset or uncomfortable, please feel free to take a moment when watching this. So sexual violence is really an umbrella term for any form of unwanted or unwelcome or coercive sexual behavior. So things like sexual assault, sexual violence, sexual assault and sexual harassment would all be forms of sexual violence. Sexual assault, on the other hand, would be any sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent of the victim.
So to define domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. It can include physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, and emotional abuse.
So we did a brief overview of our services just to go a little bit more in depth about what different services we offer. We have our emergency safe house. It provides a safe and supportive haven for victims of domestic or sexual violence and human trafficking. Our safe house did remain open for the entirety of the pandemic thus far and still continues to be open to this day. And our safe house functions more like an actual home with shared kitchen and living spaces with private bedrooms for families and individuals. So individuals and mothers are welcome to bring their children if they are leaving an abusive situation. It's not, we take more than just the victim themselves. And so it functions as a home instead of being like sort of separate areas. We have a shared kitchen and living space for all of our residents.
Our supportive services, we offer short-term individual psychoeducational counseling, provide support, empowerment, and direction for survivors of violence. And by psychoeducational, it's kind of a look into the way we think, our behaviors, our belief systems, how we came to have those. So it's kind of a way to look at how we look at the world and our place in it. We offer support groups, we offer survivors opportunities, develop connections, enhance personal growth. And we have counseling groups are again, confidential and free of charge.
So our legal advocacy, DASI's legal advocates help individuals navigate our legal system. We do want to take the time to say that our legal advocates are not attorneys and we do not offer legal advice. However, they are familiar with the New Jersey Prevention of Domestic Violence Act and just sort of the way, the law works for victims and survivors. So they are able to, just again, help people understand their options. Legal advocates are able to make referrals to local attorneys, provide court preparation and accompaniment to Sussex County Superior and municipal courts.
DASI is an educational abuse intervention program for men who use coercive controlling behavior in intimate partner relationships. The program's beliefs are that abuse and interpersonal violence are learned behaviors that can be unlearned. Abuse uses force to gain power and control in a relationship. Changes at all levels, individual, institutional, cultural, must happen to resolve this social program. DASI offers psychoeducational groups, case management, and community education for their clients.
So the first of our response teams is the Sussex County Sexual Assault Response Team. So this provides services to anyone who discloses that they were the victim or survivor of a sexual assault. The SART team includes both the forensic nurse examiners, law enforcement, and the DASI representative would be our confidential sexual assault advocates. So essentially, if a victim reports to either a police station to file a police report or to a hospital, they can request an advocate if one is not offered to them. And at that point, someone from DASI would be contacted and would reach out to them to accompany survivors to the hospital and or police station, either virtually or in person, depending on the state of the pandemic at any given time. Advocates inform survivors of their options, including safety planning, like we discussed earlier, the available resources to them, and any follow-up services they might need as well.
And Our domestic violence response team, DVRT, provides services to survivors who disclose an act of domestic violence. Volunteers respond to the police department after a domestic violent incident has to assist the victim and their children. DVRT volunteers provide survivors with information, referrals, and comfort to family members involved in domestic violence incidents.
For our case management program, this provides crisis intervention, including assistance with other social service organizations, assistance with housing and financial issues, assistance with substance abuse, and mental health referrals. Our case management program helps connect victims with appropriate community resources if they're looking for a service that we cannot provide.
In prevention and education, this idea of primary prevention is to reduce and or eliminate factors that could lead to victimization or perpetration of violence. We facilitate prevention discussions with community partners, businesses, and schools, like we're doing right now. And our prevention work focuses on teen dating violence, healthy and unhealthy relationships, and media literacy.
And I think, Jim, do you have the stats pulled up?
I don't.
Gotcha.
But I can say, basically on any, in the last 3-4 years, DASI takes about 1,500 to 1,600 phone calls each year. The majority of those are questions about domestic violence. I think typically 1,200 calls will be about domestic violence, and maybe 300 or so dealing with sexual violence. So the vast majority of our calls are dealing with domestic violence. So I can say that. And this was one of the groups we have is a poetry group. And this were some of our poets at a reading a few years ago. And Nina and I facilitate poetry groups, healing poetry groups with DASI. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. We also have a peer group at DASI, and DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy group that meets at DASI. The peer group came out of the dialectical behavioral therapy group. The folks enjoyed that group so much they wanted to form their own group and keep on meeting, so they do that weekly.
So these are just some of our resources if you're interested in connecting with DASI further. We have our social medias up on the screen if you're interested in following us for more information about any of our services, about more information about domestic violence and sexual violence, or information about any events we have upcoming. We also have our website if you're looking for more information or statistics about what we do. And again, our helplines are featured on the bottom as well if anyone needs those phone numbers. And that is all we have for today.
Thank you. That was very informative. A lot of information, a lot of things that I wasn't even aware of. So thank you for sharing that. So I do have a question. How long would you say it takes for someone to get connected with services through DASI?
Yeah, so anyone who calls the helpline, our helpline is, pretty much always open, barring any technical issues. It's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week helpline. So they'll immediately be connected to someone who can answer any questions or provide them with resources. As far as, depending on exactly what resource they're looking for, the timetable looks different. So, getting someone into our safe house would look different than having them join, one of our counseling services, depending on what they're looking for. And if there is a wait list for something like our counseling services, the safe house would operate a little bit differently. And same thing with the SART and DVRT, those two response teams. So it kind of just depends on what the program is. I would say anyone who is interested in that information, just giving the helpline a call, and they'll be able to get a specific answer for their situation.
Thank you for sharing. Also, what are the struggles you see as far as why families don't reach out? What are the different challenges that you guys are faced with?
I think there is a traditional mindset that what happens in a person's home is their business. We talk about, belief systems that have been in something we've inherited in our culture. and there's a stigma attached to reaching out or even confessing,
Mhm.
and part of the problem is too that people can be in an abusive situation for years and they only recognize it as abuse.
Yes. Yeah.
He only hits me when he's drinking, or he had a bad week at work. We can manage the truth to be anything we want it to be. If it's not physical abuse, it's not abuse. Where research shows that emotional psychological abuse is just as devastating as physical abuse in some situations. So people don't recognize what they're actually in as an unhealthy situation. That's where the educational piece, the prevention and educational piece that Nina and I are engaged in is so important. We've had students say to us that I didn't realize that what my boyfriend was doing was abusive until you guys came and talked, or what my father was doing, or whoever
Yes.
caregiver was doing was abusive until, because we live in this mindset of everything's okay, or we want it to be okay.
Yes, and I agree. I mean, I feel, growing up as a child, it becomes your norm.
Mhm.
So when it happens as an adult, you just feel, this happens in everyone's household. So prevention is really big. And just educating them on, what abuse is important. So it's awesome to see you guys doing that work. So thank you.
Well, we also have a booklet called "Why Doesn't She Just Leave," which was actually put together by one of our board members years ago, who asked that question when she first came into DASI. And it's, sometimes a person won't make the call because they're financially dependent on the abuser, or they
Yes.
don't have another place to go, or they don't want the abuser to get in trouble. There are a large variety of reasons out there.
Yes, I actually grabbed that book, that one in Phoenix Rising,
Mm.
Oh, cool.
this past week. So
It's our poetry
I,
book.
I didn't get to open it up yet, but I have it on hand. So just, do you have any final thoughts, either of you, that you would like to share?
I think just for anyone who's considering reaching out, to do so, there's no harm in calling our number. Like we said, everything is completely free and everything is as absolutely anonymous as you want it to be. There's a lot of people call the helpline, not even necessarily looking for services right away, just, toying with the idea of reaching out and taking the next step and wanting to know what that next step is. So if anyone watching this is someone who's trying to decide whether they want to make that next step, to just call and go from there. It's always good to at least have information. And then if you choose to follow up with one of our services, we're here.
Well, thank you
As
so much.
As Nina put in one of our presentations, you deserve to be comfortable and happy.
Yeah.
And that seems like a novel idea sometimes, but truly that's a large part of where this comes from. That
Mhm.
we deserve that.
Yes. So I think the work you guys do is just amazing, and I really hope more. I mean, not that you want that many phone calls, but I hope somewhere the cycle ends, and I believe it'll start here. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having
you.
us.